Hello, furniture people. I'm Joe, and I like refinishing old furniture. Somehow I decided it would be a good idea to film that and share it, so here we are turning grit into gold. I hope you're enjoying this process with me of returning items to a beautiful state of usefulness, rather than them being one or two steps away from a landfill. This is part 4 of 4 with the desk, the haunted desk. Or I have more information now, and Eddie's pretty pleased that we're nearing the end of this. So what this actually is sometimes referred to as an organ desk or a piano desk. And this is probably from about the 1880s, give or take a decade. And what happened, what companies did at the time, uh, typically an organ or a piano manufacturer, they were probably making both of them. Sometimes they would just make a desk, and really you eliminated the keyboard and the soundboard in a piano or the portions of an organ that would be inside of it, and you just put in a flat slab of wood for the desk, and you had a desk without any drawers, just like this. So this is again something that's probably in the order of 100 and 130, 140, perhaps even 150 years old. There was no maker's mark. There's really no way to trace it. I live and I do this work in the Milwaukee area. And this is simply a theory. I have no evidence to support it, but there was the Chicago Cottage Company at one point in time produced organs and perhaps organ desks. Of course, this could have come from anywhere. Who knows? But I'm very happy that it landed in my hands, and that I've been able to work on it and share it with you. Um, the Early in this video, I added in extra shots of what its original condition was, as well as some detailed shots. That this thing had been used, moved around, probably sat in an attic or storage someplace. And fortunately, it wasn't water damaged or anything, but I'm thrilled that I've been able to take it and clean it up. Um, and at this point in the video, applying the first of about a half a dozen coats of polyurethane to protect this surface for however it's going to be used. And I have to admit that even now, as this desk for the time being sits in my dining room, I walk past it and I find myself staring at the desktop surface and sort of the tiger stripes, if you will, on the wood, on the writing surface, just turned out so beautifully. Um, I'm just really, really pleased with it. And after this video clip here where I'm applying the polyurethane, there's a brief shot of the desktop showing what it looked like once it dried, when it doesn't have the little purplish hue uh, that you see here. So an idea that I had early on was to use a two-part acrylic, uh, and the tiger striped wood, if you will, part of the desktop is set perhaps a 16th of an inch lower than the darker frame. And my original idea was to pour, I'm essentially making a dam here with this 1x1, and the painter's tape on it. Clamps are appearing here very quickly. And there's a creative process that goes on with this. And sometimes you start heading down a road and for whatever reason you change your mind. And this is one, I had even mixed up some of the acrylic enough to fill the area of the desk to about a 16th of an inch. And at the last second I pulled back and I decided not to do it. And the reason was I was very worried is if I made a mistake here, it was already very beautiful and it's very well protected with the polyurethane, multiple coats of polyurethane. And if I made a mistake here, I would have destroyed the desktop portion of it, a very significant portion of the whole piece. And I didn't want to do that. I could, of course, make a new one, but it wouldn't be original to the piece. And I didn't want to do that, so I stopped that. And I started working on a key for the mechanism. And with that came up with an interesting idea. I took one of the four, again, I'll call it a wheel. It's not really a wheel, it's a roller, I guess is the right word for it. And I needed a little triangle shaped bit of metal. So I pulled out a grinder and started shaping the metal to the right size that would work for effectively for a key for the desktop. And I'm shaping it here. And as I did this, it was glued inside of the wooden wheel with the flat end, flat side, and eventually it heated up and it came loose. So I re-glued it, having the metal stick out all the way on one end and being flush with the surface of the wood on the other end. And you'll see here as we proceed a little bit that came up with a pretty interesting solution to create a key for a key that's long lost. Now you can see the metal pieces sticking all the way out of one end, flush on the other end. I haven't refinished the wooden part here yet, but I did that, stained it dark, and then polyurethaned it. Fits nicely into the keyhole, and you can see the lock mechanism turns very nicely. Alright, so we're at a stage now where I've essentially completed the component parts of the desk, the desktop, the desk frame, pedestals, the three pieces of the folding top of it, as well as the back, and now I'm beginning the reassembly of the pieces. And from earlier photographs, I talked a little bit about how this piece, the desktop, was originally part of something else, a box or a container or something. You can see the old marks here. Those
have nothing to do with this desk. Let's see how it fits and what it looks like. Alright, so leaning up against the fireplace there is the back panel of the desk, and that was just very cheap plywood. Sanding it, staining it would not have been worth the effort. I wouldn't have achieved any result that really added anything. So I picked up a very dark gray flat paint and cleaned it up, filled in some cracks and things, and just painted it to create a neutral background. And this just slots in. And let's see what we have achieved.
And here I had to remanufacture, or manufacture rather, two blocks for the pedestals um, right where they meet the desk. And my guess is, as we now know, that this is an organ desk or a piano desk, is that from the original manufacturer, that those little cutouts and one of the blocks was missing when I picked up the piece. Um, that was where a keyboard was inserted. And you can see the darker block in the back here on the shot on the green shop towel was the only remaining block. So I put these together, stained them up a couple of times, worked them, get them to fit better. But the final result was quite nice. And I do have a story that I want to share with you on this haunted desk. And it was a cold and rainy night in Chicago. The wind howled outside and the rain beat against the windows. Inside, a young woman sat at her desk working late into the night. She was a writer. She was working on her latest novel. As she worked, she began to feel uneasy. She felt like she was being watched. She looked up but couldn't see anyone. She tried to focus on her work, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched with intent. Suddenly, she heard a noise. It sounded like someone was in the room with her. She stood up but couldn't see anyone. She was starting to get scared. The noise came again, and this time she was sure it was coming from the desk. She looked down and she saw a figure sitting in her chair. The figure was a woman and was dressed in old-fashioned clothes. The woman looked up at the younger woman, and her eyes were filled with sorrow. "Help me," she said. "I'm trapped in the desk and I'm trying to get out." The young woman was terrified, but she knew she had to help. She sat down in the chair next to the desk, and the woman told her a story. The woman was a widow and had a farm, but needed a husband. She had been working on an advertisement when she was murdered. Her spirit was now trapped in the desk for over 100 years. She couldn't leave until she finished her work. The young woman agreed to help finish. She sat down at the desk and started to write. As she wrote, the spirit of Belle Gunness began to fade. When the young woman finished the advertisement, the spirit of Belle Gunness was gone. The desk was empty, the handprint was gone, and the young woman was alone. Or was she? Please look at the link in the description. I very much enjoyed this process, sharing this with you. If you've liked this video, please like and subscribe. I'll be selling this haunted desk. I look forward to sharing more videos with you. Stay safe and be healthy, everyone.